The ultra-rich are prepping for doomsday right now, and here's why. France is on fire right now, but the revolution will have wine at a sidewalk cafe. You goddamn right it will. Of course, the US ruling elite and the mainstream media they own don't want to talk much about the mass protests going on in France. The American rich want to exploit the workers more and more, and facing the wrath of the common man and woman is their greatest fear. So they have been increasingly coming up with ways to avoid the guillotines when it comes to guillotine. Maybe that's why Steve Jobs always had a turtleneck on. Maybe it was lined with metal to stop the guillotine. So what's going on here? Think of it this way. When you're on a ship or in a building and you see all the rats running towards you, you know there's some horrible shit behind the rats because they're the first ones to flee. You see rats running, you run with them. All right? Well, the rats of our society are beginning to flee. The richest of the rich are making a run for it. The ruling class knows what's coming right now. A combination of climate crisis and the banking collapse and the soul-killing inequality of late-stage capitalism, not to mention the impending extreme dilution of the PetroDollar. Don't you just love that the expression not to mention means to mention? Not to mention this thing I'm now mentioning. Anyway, the rats. Let's get back to the rats. The rats, the rich, are fleeing to higher ground, or sometimes underground. I'll come back to the proof of that in a moment. But first, here's another important point. The US has been able to control much of the world over the past many decades thanks to our endless supply of dollars. Just print whatever we want. $1 trillion a year for military? Here you go. $1 trillion of subsidies for big oil? No prob. $4 trillion for Wall Street crooks during the pandemic? Ain't no thing, my brother. And somehow, despite endless printing of money, the dollar still has a great deal of power. Sure, there's been inflation, but not cataclysmic inflation. Almost any other country prints that much money, and their currency collapses faster than Morgan Spurlock's career. But not in the US. So how do we do that? Well, it's the PetroDollar. This is what gives the US all our power, and yet it's never mentioned by the mainstream media. Go ahead. Listen to how often you hear the words PetroDollar on mainstream media. It's rarer than them saying the C word on a live broadcast. Capitalism. The word PetroDollar doesn't even have its own English language Wikipedia article. There's a Wikipedia article for everything. There's a Wikipedia article for monsters vs. aliens, mutant pumpkins from outer space, but no PetroDollar article. There's no PetroDollar entry, but there's an entry for duckface. There's no PetroDollar page, but there's a page for Baron Gustav Adolf Ruderholm, a man whose only accomplishment was acting as the de facto regent of Sweden in 1792. So ask yourself why even Wikipedia covers up the term PetroDollar. Why can't average people learn about the PetroDollar? Because the greatest power of the US is also its greatest weakness. The moment people question the PetroDollar, they realize the truth that the US only maintains our control as long as the world is buying and selling a disgusting amount of fossil fuels and doing it in dollars. This fact cannot be talked about in the national dialogue. It's also why the US can never do anything about fossil fuel use. Sure, we'll talk about it, but we will race toward the end times before we dare lift a finger to stop fossil fuels. But the good times are now coming to an end. Countries like China, Russia, and others are buying and selling more fossil fuel in other currencies. Some places are also taking the climate crisis seriously and getting off fossil fuels altogether. This means there is no possibility the dollar maintains its power in the years to come. Point being, the ruling class sees the writing on the wall and they are prepping. They are preparing for what comes next. They're hoping their billions can help them escape reality. Everything from luxury bunkers to security forces to grabbing up all the private islands. Of course, your private island isn't going to help during doomsday if the doomsday is a climate crisis sea level rise. I can just see Jeff Bezos up to his waist in water, inflatable armbands on, telling his closest friends, "We've got everything we need to survive here, nothing to worry about. There's even a barbecue." Wait, no, that's underwater. No, never mind. Everything's underwater. One head of an investment banking firm told The New Yorker recently, "I keep a helicopter gassed up all the time, and I have an underground bunker with an air filtration system." He said that his preparations probably put him at the extreme end among his peers, but he added, "A lot of my friends do the guns and motorcycles and the gold coins. That's not too rare anymore." I keep the helicopter gassed up and an underground bunker. Well, which is it, buddy? Are you going to fly away as the city burns and thick-headed assholes steal everyone's food? Or are you going underground? I don't think the gassed-up helicopter is going to do much in the bunker for you. Simple. The helicopter's for the floods and the bunker's for the zombies. Well, maybe you won't know which is coming over the hills, or maybe it'll be both at once. Maybe it will be water-bound flood zombies, thousands of them on rafts and kayaks and canoes. Seems like a rowing motion would be perfect for a zombie. As author Douglas Rushkoff wrote recently, "Never before have our society's most powerful players assumed that the primary impact of their own conquests would be to render the world itself unlivable for everyone else. They're destroying the planet and trying to escape it at the same time, while also telling everyone else that they're creating the brave new world. Musk, Bezos, Zuckerberg, Gates, they're all saying they're the only ones who know how to make the world awesome. But then behind closed doors, they're going, how the fuck do I get out of here, huh? Because we all know this tiny planet can't contain my psychopathic tendencies. Where's the door?" A company called Vivos is selling luxury underground apartments in converted Cold War munitions storage facilities, missile silos, and other fortified locations around the world. Like miniature Club Med resorts, they offer private suites for individuals or families and larger common areas with pools, games, movies, and dining. Yeah, nothing sounds better than to spend your last 12 days on a burning planet in a missile silo, playing shuffleboard and pretending everything is going to be fine. The big secret of all these doomsday scenarios is that it takes a village to make any place sustainable for long. It takes community. It takes working together. It takes all of us working really hard, not running off and hiding in a cave alone. Even those super attractive private islands, assuming they aren't deep under the sea from climate change, even they aren't so luxurious after the first week or so. Small islands are utterly dependent on air and sea deliveries for basic staples. Solar panels and water filtration equipment need to be replaced and serviced at regular intervals. The billionaires who reside in such locales are more, not less, dependent on complex supply chains than those of us embedded in industrial civilization. Yeah, you thought you had it all figured out. You have your private helicopter, you have your hot lady friend, you're out on your island with enough food for months and enough sunblock for years. All is great. Then 3 weeks in, the water filtration pump breaks. Great. Now you have to either drink parasitic worm water or you have to invite a zombie repair person out to your island and just hope that the coconuts you'll try to pay him with will be more attractive than your juicy throat or brain or liver or lady friend. To say the least, it does not seem the ultra-wealthy have planned out their end times so well. Rising S Company in Texas builds and installs bunkers and tornado shelters for as little as $40,000 for an 8-foot by 12-foot emergency hideout, all the way up to an $8.3 million luxury series Aristocrat, complete with pool and bowling lane. Yeah, that's what you need to survive. A fucking bowling lane. Not water or real food or D vitamins or philosophy books that somehow help you believe life inside a missile silo has any existential meaning beyond how many Sudoku books you can complete. None of that. Just bowling. Here's the question. You're in the end times, you're in your bunker, you're stuck there for years, you don't know if any other humanity survived. Do you still wear the special bowling shoes when you bowl? Do you still walk up to the counter and go, do you have a size 10? Because I can wear a 10 and a half, but 10 would be better. Another service offered for the uber-rich preppers is security guards. Pay millions now, and when the apocalypse comes, we'll send a gang of slightly unhinged former Navy SEALs to protect all that good stuff you have squirreled away in your bunker. But Rushkoff said he spoke to 5 of the wealthiest individuals on the planet who are preparing for the last days that they themselves are causing. And their main question was, how do you get the heavily tattooed major daddy issue grunts with large guns to stay loyal to the billionaire nerd who hired them once the dollar has no value and there's no one left to hear his nerdy screams? Oh, right. In a world after the dollar collapses and everyone's stealing toilet paper, why would a troglodyte with heavy PTSD give a shit about protecting an asshole and his family? Perhaps the rich should have spent more time fostering community, creating a whole group of people who were loyal out of love and devotion instead of a paycheck. But what I find more interesting than their stupid plans is why the ultra-rich are doing this now. Why now? They're doing it because they know the combination of this unfathomable level of inequality with this unprecedented level of environmental destruction cannot be sustained. You cannot have a sustainable world in which 8 men own the same wealth as half the world. The bottom 50% of humans, 8 douchebags, have the same wealth as 4 billion people. Does that sound a little top-heavy to you? Does that sound a little like the end of the Jenga game? And while that's going on, the richest of the rich are also more responsible than any others for the climate crisis, which is causing floods, droughts, fires, hurricanes, and Category 5 shitstorms. And in the middle of all that, the petrodollar is on the brink. Long term, doing away with the petrodollar and creating a multipolar world is a very, very good thing. It means humans might survive a few more years. But for rich Americans, it's a very bad thing. And they're predicting the worst. So my advice to all the non-billionaires out there, all of us normal folks, steal the keys to the billionaires' helicopters and hoard frozen jalapeno poppers. Wait, no, don't do that. Don't do that. Instead, establish community. Get to know your neighbors. Join groups devoted to change. Be the opposite of the billionaire apocalypse preppers. That's it for the most censored news this week. I come out with a new episode every week, and we are completely funded by you. We're completely independent. This is an independent project with Mint Press. So please join us at patreon.com/behindtheheadlines and keep fighting.